Have you ever wondered why, in the age of artificial intelligence, audiobooks and quick learn videos, we still can't remember or create better than people did hundreds of years ago? With just a few mouse clicks, we can access millions of sources of information, yet many people feel their brains are increasingly overwhelmed. They read something and forget it immediately, or listen to something and retain nothing afterward. The truth is, before the internet even existed, people faced a similar problem. From the 16th to the 20th century, when books were the only source of information that could change one's fate, scholars discovered a method that seemed simple but proved timeless in its effectiveness: the art of note taking and digesting information. In today's data saturated world, maybe it's time we relearn the art of reading, writing, and thinking from people who lived hundreds of years before us. On the journey to find answers about how people in the past dealt with vast oceans of data, MindForge came across a deeply insightful article from the art of note taking and knowledge management. A habit that seems small, but is actually the foundation of all great creative work. What stopped the entire team in their tracks was the honest and nuanced perspective on how brilliant minds like Erasmus and Nietzsche turned their notebooks into tools for organizing, reflecting, and processing information. Rather than passively consuming content in an era where we read a lot but remember little, know a lot but understand little, this perspective serves as a reminder for each of us to slow down, write things down, and reconnect with our own stream of thought. So, how do we revive that spirit and apply it to modern life? Come join us at MindForge as we dive into this journey, and don't forget to subscribe and watch until the end, because you just might rediscover the art of thinking for yourself. First, let's take a look at how we've been managing information, because traditional methods no longer seem to cut it in today's era of data overload. Outdated information management. When a notebook isn't enough in an ocean of data. The 21st century ushered in an era where information is generated at an unprecedented pace. The manual note-taking methods that once symbolized patience and deep thinking now feel way too slow for the speed of the digital world. According to a 2020 study by the University of California, UC San Diego, the average knowledge worker processes the equivalent of 174 newspapers worth of data every single day, 5 times more than in the early 1980s. This data storm overwhelms a brain that's already limited in processing capacity, forcing people to rely on external memory tools, from note-taking apps and cloud servers to search engines. But that convenience has also significantly weakened our ability to focus and store information deeply. A 2018 study by the International Data Corporation, IDC, found that 26% of a knowledge worker's day is spent just searching for and compiling information scattered across multiple platforms, and only 56% of the time do they actually find what they need. These numbers reveal a paradox. The easier it is to access information, the more time we waste processing it. Note-taking, whether handwritten or digital, is increasingly becoming something we do just to not forget rather than to actually understand. The brain becomes passive, and our capacity for deep thinking gets replaced by mechanical data storage. Breaking the myth: note-taking and digesting information. We often believe that simply writing something down means we've learned it, but in the digital age, writing doesn't equal understanding. A 2014 study by Princeton University and UCLA showed that students who took handwritten notes had better recall and content analysis than those who typed on laptops, because they had to summarize, interpret, and filter information rather than copy it word for word. This shows that learning isn't just about the act of writing, but about the process of restructuring knowledge in our minds. Today, when every idea can be saved with a single click, it's easy to fall into the illusion of understanding, the feeling that you've grasped something just because it's stored on your phone. That's when we need to relearn the art of digesting information, knowing when to pause, think, connect the new with the old, and express it in our own words. Note-taking should be the starting point for thinking, not the destination. If a notebook was once a place for people to have a conversation with themselves, then in the data age, our job isn't to write more. It's to think deeper. Only when writing is connected to thinking does information truly transform into real knowledge. The kind you can't find with a quick search. So, in this context, as people increasingly struggle to stay afloat in a sea of data, do information management apps actually help us take control of knowledge, or do they just add another layer of chaos to our digital world? Management apps. Solution or headache for users? The illusion of tools, decorating instead of organizing. 3 years ago, when Qin Guyan, also known as the present writer, introduced a note taking app called Notion, I was instantly drawn in by its endless customization options, the elegant tables, cute icons, harmonious colors. It all made Notion feel like the perfect digital notebook. I spent hours tweaking the interface, searching for beautiful templates, learning how to build dashboards in minimalist, vintage, and aesthetic styles. But ironically, the more effort I put into my Notion page, the emptier it became. Categories like writing, ideas, and books to read were nothing but blank titles. I had completely forgotten the original purpose: to take notes and manage information more effectively. I wasn't alone. A lot of people get trapped in that decoration loop, where the tool gets glorified while the actual thinking gets forgotten. On YouTube, hundreds of videos about Notion revolve around setting up workspaces, aesthetic journals, or the best dashboard of the year. But rarely does anyone talk about how to actually make that system save time, reduce information overload, and genuinely serve your work. When the tool becomes the destination instead of the means, we're just fooling ourselves with the appearance of productivity. The simplest system is the most powerful tool. From that frustration, I realized a common misconception: a more versatile tool doesn't mean a more effective one. Notion, Evernote, Obsidian. Each of these apps has its own strengths. But without a solid organizational system, they're just beautifully designed data storage bins. From the longtime user communities of these apps, I learned a valuable lesson: don't overcomplicate how you organize information. Information doesn't need to be arranged in an elaborate way. It just needs to be easy to find, easy to understand, and easy to act on. That's when I was introduced to Tiago Forte's Para method, a minimalist yet incredibly flexible organizational system. Para is divided into 4 groups: projects, tasks you're currently working on with a clear start and end; areas, domains you need to maintain on an ongoing basis; resources, a knowledge bank for future use; archives, and completed or no longer relevant materials. That clarity is what frees information from chaos and turns it into a foundation for more effective action. I'll dive deeper into each part later, but first, to understand why a system this seemingly simple can completely change how we think and work, we need to go back to the person who created it. The origin of the Para method, a misfortune that changed everything. Tiago Forte, the founder of the Para method, was born in 1985 into an arts family in Orange County, Southern California. His childhood was relatively uneventful, aside from frequent complaints about teaching quality at school. But the major turning point in Tiago's life came from a health setback that seemed minor at first. At 18, he developed a strange throat condition that doctors couldn't diagnose. In his attempts to manage the pain, he accidentally took anti-epileptic medication, a drug that had the side effect of severely impairing short-term memory. By age 24, Tiago was told he had the brain of an 80-year-old. His short-term memory had almost completely stopped functioning. It felt like everything was falling apart. But in the middle of that despair, Tiago started keeping a journal to record everything he was going through: his symptoms, his emotions. When he realized his medical records were so long that doctors couldn't pinpoint the cause, he decided to try summarizing all the information. Through that process, Tiago and his doctors were able to identify the real diagnosis: a vocal disorder. This experience taught Tiago a profound lesson about the power of organizing information. From that point on, he began building his own personal knowledge management system, one that not only helped him recover his ability to learn, but also allowed him to earn an honors degree. Over time, he refined the system and named it the Para method, short for projects, areas, resources, and archives. The method was quickly adopted by major corporations like Genentech, Toyota Motor Corporation, and the Inter-American Development Bank to boost creative output, research, and decision-making. From a condition that once seemed to end his future, Tiago Forte turned adversity into the foundation of a globally influential knowledge management framework. How to build and run PARA. The structure of PARA. The PARA method, short for projects, areas, resources, and archives, is the framework Tiago Forte built to turn note-taking into personal knowledge management. Unlike systems that organize information by topic, PARA categorizes data by level of actionability and utility, so you always know what to do with any piece of information. According to feedback from the Fort Labs student community, over 68% of professional Notion and Evernote users say PARA has helped them understand their goals more clearly and reuse old information with ease. This simple yet effective approach has earned PARA the nickname the backbone of digital productivity. Projects are short-term goals with a clear start and end, things like finishing a semester report, organizing a workshop, or building a personal website. Each project is like a temporary stop on your journey of growth, where ideas, information, and effort all converge toward a specific destination. When the project ends, your knowledge ship sets sail again, carrying the experiences and lessons you've just gathered. But to keep those voyages from drifting aimlessly, you need long-term guiding currents, and that's where areas come in. These are ongoing, recurring responsibilities like studying, health, personal finances, or relationships. If projects are short adventures, areas are the operating system that keeps every journey balanced and stable. A project might wrap up, but an area is always being cared for and nurtured, like how you'd still exercise, even after hitting a fitness milestone. And to keep the journey well-fueled, you need resources, the knowledge bank of the system. This is where you store articles, ideas, quotes, notes, and knowledge that might be useful in the future. A blog post you read today might not seem relevant right now, but a few months later, it could become the perfect piece for a new project. That said, Tiago Forte recommends focusing on only 5 to 7 core topics. Because when you try to hold too much, you fall into productivity theater, or what he calls infotainment ROM, collecting knowledge without actually digesting it. Finally, once a project wraps up or an area goes on pause, everything moves to archives. The cold storage of the system. Nothing dies in the archives, it just hibernates, waiting to be revived for another purpose. Maybe today, you tuck away a plan from an old workshop, but a few years later, it could become the foundation for something much bigger. In PARA, nothing is ever truly lost, and it's just resting, waiting for you to call it back at the right moment. How PARA works in practice. Imagine you're a food technology and nutrition student juggling a packed class schedule, research papers, and a passion for the gym. In a world overflowing with PDFs, Google Drive links, and scattered notes, PARA can be your map back to order. In Notion, you start by creating subject folders under areas to store lecture slides and important assignments. Then you add a scientific research folder for your annual academic projects. Under resources, you store nutrition articles, fitness training guides, and diet plans. When you reach your third year and get assigned a project developing a high-protein dietary powder from grains, a major semester project, the PARA system lets you instantly pull in material from both your resources folder on diets and your areas folder on research methodology with a simple drag and drop. According to a 2024 Notion student community survey, many users reported that PARA significantly reduced the time they spent searching for materials and improved their group productivity. The result: your team not only submits on time, but also makes it to the top of the scientific research competition. After finishing, instead of deleting everything, you sort through it. Useful content gets sent back to resources. The rest moves to archives for future thesis use. Over time, you realize PARA doesn't just help you organize information. It trains your mind to think in systems, so every new project starts from a stronger foundation than the last. In other words, PARA isn't just 4 folders. It's a living knowledge ecosystem where every piece of information has its place, its role, and its own journey. And through that cycle, PARA opens up a world of efficiency, creativity, and knowledge renewal. The benefits of the PARA method. In an era where the average person consumes over 74 gigabytes of information daily, according to a 2022 UC San Diego study, remembering, organizing, and actually using what we learn has become a massive challenge. Tiago Forte argues that the problem isn't how much data you have, but how you store and use it. That's why Para was designed not just to store information, but to turn it into action, transforming data into living knowledge. Less time wasted searching for information. According to the McKinsey Global Institute 2012, office workers spend an average of 1.8 hours a day searching for documents they've already read or used. Para eliminates this loop by assigning every piece of data a clear purpose, a project, area, resource, or archive. Instead of digging through folders to find last year's report, you simply open the relevant project folder. Information is where it should be, ready whenever you need it. Every minute saved today is an hour of creativity tomorrow. More focus on what matters most. Para doesn't encourage you to do more. It helps you choose right. When all your information is organized into 4 clear categories, it's easy to identify what actually needs your attention right now. For instance, a student using Para in Notion can keep a research report in projects while health goes in areas. That separation prevents them from confusing urgent tasks with important ones. You direct your energy toward projects that truly matter instead of scattering it across dozens of small, meaningless tasks, turning ambitions and long-term goals into reality. From that focus, you start seeing the connection between short-term projects and long-term dreams. Every completed project is a brick in the area you're building for the long haul, whether that's career growth, lasting health, or personal finances. When you store and reuse information with intention, goals that once seemed distant become concrete and achievable. Para helps you turn vision into action and action into measurable results. Higher productivity and creativity. A fluid, flexible system like Para lets you recombine old data in new contexts. When working on a dietary food research project, you can pull from resources on nutrition and areas on research processes to complete the project faster. This cross-referencing sparks creativity. From old data, you discover new ideas. Tiago calls this the second brain effect. When the system handles the remembering, your brain is free to focus on creating. Fighting information overload and FOMO. In the online age, FOMO, fear of missing out, keeps us constantly collecting information but rarely using it. Para acts as a mental filter, forcing you to choose and act. Instead of hoarding, every piece of data gets a clear destination, which clears your mind. When you know all valuable information is safely stored in the system, you can let go of the pressure to remember everything. More specifically, Para is like a nursery for your intentions. Every piece of information you record is a seed of knowledge planted in the garden. Over time, it grows into a full intention, a concrete idea, project, or goal. When that tree blooms, you harvest the finished projects, and each fruit contains countless new seeds of ideas ready to be planted back into the Para garden. This cycle makes your system richer over time, your productivity higher, and your prep time for each new project shorter but more effective. That's why Tiago Forte says Para isn't just a way to manage information. It's a philosophy for living intelligently, where you build knowledge while also growing your own future. Tiago Forte's practical tips: prioritize projects first. Where ideas become reality. According to Tiago Forte, among the 4 Para folders, projects always come first. Why? Because this is the front line where your ideas transform into reality. Without action, even the biggest goals are just daydreams. Tiago once said, "A plan only truly comes alive when it's placed in a specific time frame." A project always has a clear start and finish. You can measure progress, evaluate results, and feel the satisfaction of completion. Think of it this way. You've been nursing a dream to write a book for 3 years, but you haven't created a folder in Para called Complete First Draft. Your notes, ideas, and references are scattered everywhere, and the book stays stuck in the idea zone. But the moment you create a dedicated project folder with subfolders like Outline, Characters, and Writing Schedule, you've officially launched the journey of turning that dream into reality. Projects show whether you're moving forward or standing still. And when you prioritize them, you're prioritizing your own growth. Areas, the foundation of stability and discipline. Once a project is launched, areas are what keep you going over the long haul. They manage the recurring responsibilities in your life. The things you need to consistently care for, like health, career, learning, finances, and personal relationships. Tiago once compared it this way: if a project is a wave, an area is the ocean. Projects come and go, but areas are the lifelong commitments you maintain. You might finish a student workshop project, but if you neglect your career development area, not updating your skills, not tracking your learning progress, you'll quickly fall behind. Or if you pour everything into a marketing campaign project but ignore your health, the result will be burnout and imbalance. Areas are the static part of your productivity flow. They don't produce immediate results, but they're the foundation that nourishes every other project for the long term. Resources, the creative bank, but know when to stop. Resources hold everything you're interested in, curious about, or find inspiring: an article, a video, a podcast, a piece of study material, or an idea that popped into your head in the shower. But Tiago warns: don't let curiosity kill your productivity. Resources are only truly useful when they serve a current project or area. Otherwise, they become a pile of sleeping assets that take up space and distract your mind. For example, if you're building your personal brand but spending hours reading about Japanese gardening, something completely unrelated to your current goal, that's a red flag. Having interests is great, but you need to be honest about whether something actually moves you closer to your current project. If not, save it for later. Resources aren't bad, they're creative nourishment. But learn to eat just enough so you're not too full of ideas and too hungry for action. Archives. Don't overlook this hidden gem. In Para, archives hold everything that's been completed, paused, or is no longer serving your current goals. It might sound useless at first, but Tiago insists it's a land of second chances. For example, a project you failed 3 months ago, like building a knowledge-sharing blog, could suddenly come back to life when you receive a content collaboration offer. Instead of starting from scratch, you simply reopen your archive folder and leverage all your old material. Archives are like the basement of your thinking home. They might look dusty and old, but sometimes they hold precious gems you'd forgotten about. Don't delete, just neatly tuck things away. One day, you'll thank yourself for being careful. Don't obsess over perfect categorization. Let a little chaos fuel creativity. Tiago believes an overly neat system can actually kill creativity. So instead of obsessing over filing every document perfectly, he advises staying flexible. Let materials coexist in one folder with a clear title, like Ideas for 2026. And when you search for something specific, the random connections you encounter might give you an unexpected spark. For instance, while searching for content for a personal productivity project, you stumble across a piece about active listening and communication. That random connection might open up a new direction. Could productivity actually come from listening to yourself more deeply? Chaos can feel scary, but for creative people, it's fertile ground for breakthrough ideas. Personalize Para. Because no two people are the same. Finally, Tiago emphasizes that Para is not a rigid formula. It's a skeleton you customize to fit your life. Many of his students have felt frustrated when copying the standard setup. They created too many empty folders, set up dozens of areas and resources, and never actually used them. The system became a burden instead of a helper. Tiago's solution is simple: only create a folder when you actually have content to put in it. If you don't have personal hobbies outside of work, skip the resources folder. If in your health area you don't lift weights, but cycle instead, rename the folder from weight training to cycling, where you can store workout plans, routes, and nutrition tips. A system has value when it honestly reflects your real life. Para doesn't ask you to live like Tiago Forte. It helps you live true to yourself, just with more organization, more clarity, and more effectiveness. To wrap it up, information and time may feel limitless, but your life isn't. Choose a place to store and nurture what truly matters to you. A Para system in your favorite note-taking app. There, each idea is planted like a seed. Each piece of knowledge is a drop of water helping it grow. And one day, when the time is right, you'll harvest seasons of meaningful projects from that very garden. Para isn't just a storage method, it's a way of organizing your life. And as Tiago Forte once said, the magic isn't in the system itself, but in how you use it to create real value in your life. That wraps up our deep dive into Para, a method that helps us not just organize information, but reorganize our thinking and our actions. From understanding what truly matters to learning how to let every note and every idea serve a bigger purpose. This is the journey of turning knowledge into productivity and productivity into real value in life. MindForce would like to sincerely thank the present writer and all of you for taking the time to listen. So, what about you? Have you found a system to manage your information and turn knowledge into action? Share your thoughts in the comments below so MindForce can hear from you. Thanks for listening. This is MindForce. See you soon.